Hey everybody, welcome to Adorned in Imagination. I'm Josh Miller, and through this series, we're looking at the transformational power of style and story and how those things interact and intersect and expand the way that we move through the world. Part of that is learning about independent designers from across the globe, the cross-cultural impact that learning about those designers, engaging with different communities and cultures can have on how we show up. Imagine who we are every day and how we move through the world. So today we're having a conversation with Koya Nyangi of Let Me Show You Different and the African Creators Festival in Colorado. And she has introduced me to so many amazing African designers who have now become part of my life and my wardrobe. And I have really just loved it. So I'm excited for our conversation today, Koya.
Me too. Is it, okay, cool. I was going to ask you, it's a part now where I don't have to I'm not looking at you.
No, we're just
Okay,
talking.
good, fantastic.
Yeah.
All right, so I can,
This is why it's not live. Koya, why don't we start with, can you tell us, when you think about being adorned in imagination and imagining yourself into existence every day, what does that mean for you?
Wow, oh, God, those hard questions. Imagining myself into existence every day. I think showing up authentically. And I think authentically is such a bloody word that we've diluted it because we use it too much. So I will say it again. Showing up as who you really want to show up. When you're like, do I want to be this person today? I'm not sure. Am I going to offend someone? And you're just like, actually, fuck them, and I'm just gonna show up like this because this is how I really want to show up in the world. That's what I think about.
That really resonates for me, and I wonder how your upbringing, in contrast with now being in Denver, how that has evolved the way that you show up over the course of your lifetime.
I think it's the same. I don't think it's changed at all. I think my upbringing is actually what has allowed me and given me permission to show up the way I'm showing up every single day. And I think clothes is such an integral part of showing up because it's really how you show up. You kind of use that. When I grew up in Kenya, born and bred, there wasn't limitations of this is how you want to show up. There was a sense of freedom in showing up. And I didn't realize that other people had kind of limitations on how to show up because I just showed up in life. And then
You're just here I am.
It wasn't a thing that I ever thought about. I just was this is who I want to be and this is who I'm gonna be. And it has continued every single point. I don't think at any time I have sheltered, cowered, twisted, never. Through and through. Always has been like this. Yes.
That's a blessing.
I recognize that. That's the interesting thing. I really do recognize that as you move in the world and you go into different places, that's not a thing that's guaranteed. It's not a freedom that is guaranteed to you to show up the way you are. So then I really feel such gratitude to be able to, first of all, be naive in knowing that, that there isn't no limitation for me. That not knowing that. And now being so appreciative of that and knowing that because of that, then I have to owe it to myself to show up the way I want to show up every single day. Because it's something that other people are fighting for. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So then because of that, how dare I not show up the right way?
Hearing that way of growing up and relating to how you can show up and not having those limitations.
Yeah.
I'm grateful that you got to experience that.
Yeah.
I really am. And I'm sure that, or I would assume that part of why you created Let Me Show You Different has been birthed from those different experiences and then maybe seeing the limitations that other people have experienced and wondering how you can bring the philosophy of how you move through the world to support and potentially free them.
Yes.
So I would love to hear a little bit more about Let Me Show You Different and how that ties into that core part of who Koya is and the way that you engage with folks.
Yes. You know, I did an interview a while back and someone was like, oh, where did the name of your company come from? And I was like, Let Me Show You Different it's a lifestyle. It's an embodiment. It is being radical. Our motto is like, be bold, be brave, be different. And to be bold, to be brave, and to be different, oh God, that is such courage. Yeah. It's such courage to be able to do that. Because half the times I think you see other people and the way they show up in life, and you wish that you could show up the way they are showing up. And that in itself is such courage to be able to do, and to be able to now to actually fully embody that. That's what Let Me Show You Different was birthed through how can we use clothes to radically be ourselves, to show up and become who we want to be. Mm-hmm. It's let me show you different. Like it's, oh, how are you wearing that? Oh my God, you have the audacity to wear that. Yeah, let me show you different. Yeah. It's like, oh, you wear that different. Yeah, it's let me show you different. Like that's what it is. So it's at the core of it, and me working with these designers and having people having access to these pieces is to use these beautiful pieces and use them as your armor to show up the way you want to show up differently in however it looks like every single day. Yeah.
One time we were talking about a shopping experience where someone was like looking at an item from an African designer and they were really having a hard time deciding if they liked it, but they needed this validation from an entire group of other people to tell them if they liked it. And I really loved how you responded in terms of what you would encourage them to think about. So I'd love if you could talk about that a little bit, because I think it ties into the philosophy you're talking about.
All right, just you're killing me right now, because I do not remember. I feel like I remember this particular incident. And I remember it was an Adele Dijac piece. And I'm going to give reference to this woman because I think it's going to point pictures to why. She was an amputee, and Adele designs for the modern warrior. When you wear her pieces, you really want to stand out. You know, you're not trying to be a wallflower. It's sort of
people
really
yes,
and there's something about being seen. You know, because some of us live our lives every single day trying to not be seen. Although we do want to be seen, but we don't know how to be seen. You know what I mean? And so she came and she grabbed this scarf and she put it on and she was like, oh my God, I love it. And I was like, okay. And she had a group of friends. And so I hold back a little bit. And she was like, what do you think? And she had to like text her friends in a group chat and like send her a picture. It was this whole approval process, right? But then again, it goes back again to like, be bold, be brave, be different. It's like, let me show you different. But I really want it, but I need this approval from people, and I need you to like support this decision. And I think I just looked at her, I was like, how does it make you feel? And she was like a warrior, like a superwoman. And I was like, there, the way you feel, just right there. That's how any piece you put in your body should be able to have this feeling of strength for you. Whatever it is that you're looking for, if it gives you that feeling and it achieves it, then oh my God, I think you have arrived. Yeah. Is that what I told you?
Yeah. Your recall is good. The spirit spoke similarly.
Listen.
Can you bridge for us the Let Me Show You Different work?
Yes.
Working directly with the African designers and the creation of African Creators Festival.
Cap. Wow. Yeah, this is such a good point. We need to pay close attention. I started Let Me Show You Different because I love fashion, and I was doing a lot of fashion styling and editorial styling.
And did you start it after you moved to Denver or before?
Yes, okay. Before. But when I moved to Denver is when I was like, you know what? I'm in this new place, and I was looking around, and no one was wearing any African designer, or no one could mention any African brand. But my philosophy was fashion saves lives. And how are we styling our values? And so I realized there's a way that I love how African designers work and what they do and how it impacts not only their work, but impacts everybody around them. And to take it a step further, how it also changes the narrative that we have about the continent. And for me, let me show you different, and why I work with African brands is to give a different idea of what the continent is through the eyes of these creators. I had a survey of, I think, 200 questionnaires, and I went around the malls and like sat down and I would stop someone and they would like fill this survey. But this survey really was really important because part of this survey was like, what do you think about fashion coming from Africa? Do you know any African brands? It was a really in-depth, but what I took out of it was there was this understanding of a very stereotypical understanding of like what Africa is and what fashion from Africa is. And it was it's colorful, it's vibrant, it's like all this like the shiki or whatever. And I was just, I mean, yes and no, but also there's more. Yeah. And this more is what I want to educate and teach you about. So, and then part of the survey was also, do you know any African brands? Have you ever shopped? Do you know where to shop for them? And
did anybody say yes?
No. And so then I was like, okay, I love African brands because I've seen them. I know what they do. I know how they create, and sustainability is like being thrown around, and I'm like, African designers don't create for like, oh, I'm going to be a sustainable designer. No, African designers, when they create, are inherently sustainable, because they're not going to have all the things that they need to have, but also just from in a traditional perspective in how we do create is we really use what we have, break it down just from like traditional point. So when they're designing, there's this whole ethos that they already kind of have. So when we have brands now changing to be, oh, this are our new sustainable standards, I'm just like, okay. But you see, so you are thinking you're ahead of
catching up.
Yeah. And that's the thing. But you have an entire group of people who they're not catching up. It's like how they're doing things. So what can we learn from them? So then I was like, okay, I am making it my mission to educate on African fashion, to educate on their practices, to educate on who really are these brands that are coming from Africa and how are they creating and how can we purchase from them. So then that became my whole mission, and we did sip and shops and people discovered like Adele and also the designers. But then there's a point where I was like, I think I'm talking too much about these brands and people are just thinking like I'm just like yapping about them. So the African Creators Festival, ACF, came about so then I can take a step back, and then now they can come forward, and then now you can actually have a full understanding of who they are, what their work is, where they're from. I also know that a designer from Zimbabwe is different from a designer from Kenya, is different from a designer from Nigeria. All have different practices, all have different ways in which they do stuff, even though it's similar. And then you can kind of get to understand who they are and how you can support them.
Yeah, I love how you described wearing your values. I think that is so interwoven with what you're talking about. And my team member Hannah, my now husband Theo, and I, and a group of us went to Senegal in 2016.
Yeah.
And that experience really, like you were talking about, there's what we in the U.S. know about Africa from the news.
Yeah.
Or being very far removed, and then
Yeah.
there's the reality of what is there, and
Yes.
there's so much.
Ugh.
There's so much skill and creativity and craftsmanship.
A lot.
And so to go and to experience that, and then all of the, multiple years later to meet you and intersect with ACF,
Yeah.
and to be exposed to these designers like Adele and Denai has just been so wonderful. But the first time, I think it was when Adele was here for
Yeah.
ACF, so
Yeah.
that was a few years ago, Adele
Yes.
Dayak. I walked in and a little bit of me felt intimidated. I think kind of like the girl that we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
This question in the back of my mind of, am I allowed to wear this?
Mm.
Because some of it is so bold that in my mind, I was questioning, like, I'm here, I've met the designer, but even with that, is me wearing it in a form of appropriation or appreciation? Like that conflict for me happened. And so for you all to be there and to be like, try this on, try this on. This looks like there was this unlearning of that for me.
Yes.
And in terms of thinking about how, when we know who the creators are and we know their stories and we're not claiming it as ours, but we can tell people about it, how that shifts. So I would love to hear from you a little bit about how you think about appropriation and appreciation, and the quote I love of yours that I'll let you share with us.
African led, not African inspired. Yeah. We will get to that. But there's something you said and I got too excited and out of my brain. Hopefully you can remember. Yes, we want you. We want everyone to wear these pieces. But then yes, I do. Half of the job that I do is constantly being met with, well, am I supposed to wear that? Yeah. And somebody actually called me, they're like, oh, I was wearing this earrings and I was telling them it's from this designer based in Kenya, and they were like, oh my God, why are you wearing that? And I was like, oh my God, wait, what? See, because even I was like, wow, this thing is like really deep. People don't know if they should be able to wear it. And I'm like, yes. And because I think the idea of appreciation and appropriation is when, as Africans or even as like Black people or any culture that feels that you are appropriating, is when we've been wearing it for a really long time and then we were stopped from wearing it because it wasn't meeting a certain status, or we were sort of like primitive or whatever, and then years on you want to be the person who tells the story on us. And I'm gonna use hair as an example. When people are like, well, don't rock cornrows because it's not from your culture, it's because we had been told, well, you cannot wear this when you go to this place, or you cannot do. There was limitations on how we are able to exist within ourselves in our own culture. Then we are told you cannot show up in your own culture, and then you then go somewhere else and then come back, and then you are showing up in my culture, and then you now want to speak on my culture. So there's this pull and pull of so now it's okay when you say it's okay, but when I say it's okay, it can't be okay. Who is deciding? You get to decide that my culture is now good. That right there is the root of sort of like the appropriation.
Yeah.
And when somebody else decides now you can do it. Appreciation is really from the maker. And how you met Adele, and she tells you the story, tells you what influences her design work. You are standing right there, and you are now really supporting and wearing it and putting in your life and navigating with it however it fits into your closet. And now I see you and I'm like, oh my God, what? Like, this right here is a complete delight for me. This is the reason I started Let Me Show You Different. Yeah. Because I wanted to turn around and find someone big. Because right now you are Kenya, Tanzania, and Zimbabwe. Yeah. Oh my God. This this is how I see fashion. When it moves across the world. When right now you are carrying the stories of the Tanzanian women, Sidai, you're carrying it, you're carrying it. But now it's fashion, but and the backside of it is also culture. And you, human being, from where are you from originally?
Originally Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Chattanooga, Tennessee, wearing a Tanzanian brand, a Kenyan brand, and a Zimbabwean brand.
Yeah.
Come on. That is joy.
Yeah.
That is joy of me knowing that I am doing my work and sharing culture. Now, for me, this is complete appreciation. Yes. Does that make kind of like a good?
That totally makes sense. And yeah, I think that kind of parsing it out is super helpful.
Yes.
And that's the appreciation piece.
Yes.
All of these designers, I've met two of three that I'm wearing.
Yeah.
But even designers as I've gone to other countries and continents.
Yes.
And there are days when it's like, I'm wearing something from Barcelona and from Africa and from Canada and from somewhere else in the Western Hemisphere. And all of that together then makes this super interesting story.
I think the other thing about being able to dress and wear all these designers is also, and this goes to African-led, not African-inspired, ownership. Ownership is such an important thing. And when I mean ownership in terms of stories. Being able to own your stories and tell your own stories. Because when you think about the continent, other people have told stories about it. People have come, conquered, and be like, let me tell you about this. I went there for and somebody else comes and tells you the story. But not a lot of the times do you get to hear the stories from the designers. And so to be able to own your culture, create from your culture, and share your culture to the world, and it actually benefits and directly benefits a community, because the continent of Africa has been plundered for basically everything. It's people coming in, taking gold, taking cocoa, taking every single thing. So to work with these designers and have them have ownership and have them create their own brands, that's huge. Yeah.
Well, I think the piece connected in with that is through ACF. Every year you have had different African designers come to Denver.
Yes.
And so there's one thing to learn about their work, even seeing the physical work in person when you don't get to meet the designer, and then when you are able to actually speak to them, like to be with Denai as we're trying on House of Stone pieces, which this is one of those. But that type of experience really just reshapes, for me, how I thought about African designers more broadly, but even just the practices and the details. Because the way that she cuts things, I think one of the words she uses is for the inspired wanderer, right? So she uses a lot of natural tones, the cowrie shells, the way that she cut the silhouettes and had the different braided cords hanging down. All of those different things were very dreamlike.
Yeah.
And getting back to what we were talking about earlier of who has told the story and the headlines that have told the story, that is in stark contrast to those. And so I would be interested in hearing for you, as you've seen multiple years of ACF, there's been culinary events, there's been fashion shows, there's the trunk show, conversations, how you're seeing that expand people's understanding, some of the conversations, some of the light bulbs that have gone off, just the different ways that people have evolved and come out of that experience differently.
Yeah. So the first question before we even got here, you were like, there was Let Me Show You Different, and then there's ACF. So Let Me Show You Different is where I'm telling you all these designers and you get to shop them. And then ACF is when I'm like, okay, let's now really get to hear from these designers and let's enjoy their creativity. When we started, I knew it had to be fashion. But we also wanted to explore creativity in Africa as a whole. there was cuisine, and I brought in food. It was, well, what food do you know, or what have you enjoyed? How can we have conversations around food? But also, can African cuisine be sort of like art? And that really wasn't like a thing that people were thinking about, but I also wanted to challenge that. So, and every single time we challenged, the first time we did, we worked with like Le French, and Chef Aminata, like did a fantastic job of like taking us through the Senegal cuisine and have French inspired Senegal background. And then this last year, I wanted to also explore food in terms of storytelling, but deeper, by collaboration with Jamaica and Ethiopia, which I don't know if I can say this, I don't know if it's been done, but a whole Jamaican Ethiopia fusion, because there's a deeper understanding there. And so how does it look like? So it's a constant reshaping, reframing, and having a new understanding of this continent through the people of the continent, the innovators of the continent. And people really were shocked. I mean, I think the very interesting thing that I enjoyed was there was an Ethiopian on that day. And there's something interesting when you cook somebody else's food and you're just like, they're probably like side eye, you're like, okay, cool. And he called me over and he was like, Koya. And he was like, I honestly to God didn't think our food could look like this. Like, I didn't think our food could like turn and be like gastronomy and like be this kind of like Michelin. Like, I haven't experienced our food like that. And I was like, I was like, let me show you different. Everything you're doing. And so that, and then people to have an understanding of, oh, not all African fashion is like loud and bright and colorful, a la House of Stone, Zimbabwe. And that's how they used to dye clothes. They're not a very colorful, let's get, like, so there's this little things that people get to like learn. They're like, oh, so it could be another way as well. I'm like, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, it could be. It's very many things. You can't really put it in a box and say it's this one way. It's very many ways. And those very many ways is what ACF, and let me show you different, is here to provide. Yeah.
Yeah, the culinary experience last year, it was fabulous, but one of the things I loved was that the chefs had a story for every course.
Yeah.
So they talked about the food and the herbs that were used, and one of them, I think it was the sweet potato dish, they were talking about how when Africans were trafficked and sold into enslavement and were arriving in the U.S., they were using sweet potatoes as part of their sustenance. So they were making these through lines to where people originated and how foodways evolved and connected it into foodways of today.
Yes.
And so that through line I thought was really well done and really helpful to be like, think about this connection back to the continent all the way up to what we find on our plates today.
I love that because like the theme of that year was that. It was like, how has food journeyed when its origination was in different parts of Africa. So when people were being moved and they were going to the Caribbean, they were coming here, they were going in different areas, all these Africans, as they kind of like dispersed, but had this same origination and took their food, how did it eventually manifest itself when it got into this in the area where they were, and how the Africans who are still in Africa, how do they now still use it? So let's find that correlation, because right now I'm reading this fabulous book from Zainab Badawi, and everyone should read it, which is The History of Africa. And I'm mentioning this book because the history of Africa really has not been documented by African scholars. So this book, and it doesn't even feel like this like heavy like a PhD thesis kind of book, but it really explores Africa before colonization. which is something that we really don't have. We don't have a lot of information from. And so the festival is a way of us to kind of like connect the past and the future and the present as well. And also look at this continent and where it's going and its people, and also the influences that it has had. When we talk about Matisse, he was inspired by African art. And he got inspired by African art when like missionaries were coming and they were like getting like all the sculptures or whatever. And he was like walking down the shop and like seeing but all this was African art that he was just like, wait, the proportions are strange, but all of that. So if we have inspired the continent, then who are the innovators right now? Who are creating, who are innovating? ACF is here to showcase who this amazing new innovators are that we need to be paying attention and be inspired by. I remember when I saw Sidai designs, I like lost my mind because it's just so beautiful. What I liked is the Maasai are typically known for beadwork. And we have Maasais in Kenya and Tanzania. And Sidai works the Maasai from Tanzania, which is completely different from Maasai in Kenya. Maasai in Kenya are very like colorful. Maasai in Tanzania, Arusha are like they use like white beads a lot. And so when I was having a conversation with the owners, it was one thing that really struck me that made me really happy to be working with them and also like just showcasing their work was the fact that they not only empower this Maasai women to create, but they also add a new skill to their work, which I was just like, oh yes, amazing, because they already know beadwork, so now they get to know metal smithing as well. That's even like way more cool, because then it's like culture and modernity mixed together, and this fusion of younger generations coming up. They get to learn a new skill, and I think we're always wanting to learn a new skill. So to sit down and think like Maasai is like now doing metal smithing as well as beading and incorporating like new materials as well, and just like taking beading work into a completely new level and mixing it with like new materials, and the design work just being so innovative. I mean, I sit in the space right there. So that is why I completely love the work of Sidai and how they're just constantly just like blowing my mind away every single time. And then I will go to, oh God, Adele Dijak. I remember growing up in Kenya and like seeing this brand, and I was like, one day I'm going to own one of their pieces. And there was a pop-up sale that I went to, and that was the first time I actually like met her. I don't even think we had like a conversation or anything, because I was just a young Koya moving along life. I'm like, oh, and I think they were opening their store at Village Market. This is back then, and I got like my first ever like ring from a day. Yeah, I know, right? And now I have so many of my pieces. I know, right? I have so many of my pieces, but just me owning that one. Yeah. I think it's the same way like people like, oh, my first shirt. That was me. I owned my first Adele piece, was just like mind blowing. But the thing I love about Adele and her designs is she is embodying like different cultures in terms of like jewelry. So it's just very influenced by also the Maasai tribe, which is really good because you kind of get to see how it's the same tribe, but how the metals are different and how both the designers are like seeing it very differently and how they interpreted very differently. And I mean, she's designing to celebrate the tribes and the cultures across Africa. I mean, I have this, which is like an Ashanti fertility bracelet, which I've like, I never not wear it, but it's just how it then becomes a bracelet, and it's like really nicely done, and everything is like handmade and how they hammer it. I like seeing how she fuses a traditional style and brings it with a new style and fuse it with such great modernity and such finesse. Love that completely. And then
Her work has blown me away. Like when I looked at how many pieces I got last year, it was kind of crazy.
I know. I kept you close and I was like, you are.
What is happening?
I was like, did I do this? Is this a problem I'm giving you?
It is a problem you
gave me. Good one.
But like I have loved seeing all of the different craftspeople that she collaborates with to make all the pieces. Like you were talking about the hammering, the shaping of them. That and seeing who the team is, who is making these pieces has been super cool.
Yes.
And then like this one with the rings. Yeah. How you can, there's 9 different rings so you can layer them all differently. It's been so much fun to have this whole new portal.
Yeah. And you know, when you talk about the team and the people, it goes back when I was talking about African fashion saves lives. Because a jewelry is not just a jewelry. A bag is not a bag. A bag or a ring or a bracelet or this beautiful piece right here. This is a coming together of a community. This is our passing down of like traditions. This is keeping traditions alive. This is really hiring people. This is like bringing a community together and having the community like grow and having people, especially when it comes to side-eye, it is it is bringing all this Maasai women. And if you know how Maasai women live and how their tradition is, to be able to have your own financial independence and do what you need is completely huge, and it's such a game changer. So when I really say fashion from the continent saves lives, 100% it saves lives. Again, it goes back to styling your values and really caring about what does this $55, $100, $300, what does it mean? And how does it go further? The whole idea of just like knowing who made your piece, that is incredible. I don't think we talk a lot about that. And aside from that, it is also really the sustainability part of this. It's like all this like random metal pieces that were just like discarded, and now they've been refined, and now like look at what they are. Stunning art pieces. So yeah.
Who are some of, we've covered a few that I'm already familiar with.
Yeah.
Who are some that we haven't met yet that are on the horizon that we should look into, or that you're really like have grabbed your attention right now?
We had one who came last year, and the label Saber. She is making such incredible bags and using cowhide, and also does a lot of beading, but like her bags are just like such luxury, beautiful, like leather bags. I mean, I care about every single thing. The bracelet, the jewelry, the dress, the bag. Like, I'm thinking about every single piece of what I'm wearing. And every time I carry that bag, I don't know how many people just like stop me. They're like, oh my God, what is that bag? I'm like, I know, right? It's incredible. But yeah, so the label Saba is an amazing bag brand that everyone should like know about and like purchase, and it really lasts for a really long time. I love our mate. She's from Mali. Oh, she's like an amazing textile designer, and she just like infuses like some amazing like Malian techniques. I mean, like her pieces are to die for and incredible. We have Silvaria from Kenya, like a really young up and coming contemporary fashion designer. Oh, so good. They couldn't be able to make it for the first ever show that we did, but their pieces came down the runway and everybody was just like, what? Sadly, we didn't have enough pieces to like sell, so just like a collection. So I'm really hoping that Silvaria is able to like showcase this year. That would be really great. And the people who have my heart, Inside Out.
Inside Out.
These are amazing, incredible young designers from Lesotho. When we talk about zero waste, I mean, they are legit leaving zero waste. Inside Out takes this discarded denims. If the stitch went left, or like if the color variation was just off a little bit, I mean, that's like just discarded and like thrown. And so Inside Out takes that piece, and a very fascinating story about them is like their one, I think 100-year-old grandma was teaching them about the techniques that of the Basotho people, that how they used to live their lives as artists. So what they're doing is they're infusing that technique and using it in their denim and really recreating amazing pieces with denim that I'm just like stunned about that. And one more last person.
Before we go to them, we saw Inside Out last year.
Yes.
And so they had, like you were talking about the recycled pieces, but all of these super interesting cuts of denim. They had dyed and like bleached different parts of it with patterns. So that one was really, really interesting.
Yeah, and we didn't even get the full thing because some of it was stuck in customs.
Stuck in customs for the festival.
The unsexy side
like
of
a month later?
the unsexy side of festivals. But I mean, there was this like pant that they just like draped so interestingly that felt
the
like
one with the purple.
That it feels very like Japanese technique as well. So it's infusing sort of like this newer techniques, but mixing it with like a Basotho vibe, and the way that the way of dyeing, like the litima, which is like the way they dye. So they also have a very interesting way of dyeing and hand printing and hand blocking. So all of that technique you find. And I mean, that's incredible because you're not going to walk down the street and go to a store and like just find that anywhere. So it's those when I think of like what does luxury mean to me, those are the kinds of like little things that designers are doing across the continent that I'm just like in awe of. The other amazing, oh God, now you got me started. Now you need to stop me.
Amazing, but then there's 4 more amazing.
I know, right? Yeah. There is Shiko Onyango.
Okay.
She's the one who made the beaded pieces.
Oh.
Yes.
That were at the Museum for Black Girls?
Yes, and the beaded pieces
Those
that
are
I
stunning.
wore.
They are amazing.
Oh my goodness. And I got to wear that beaded top with like jeans, which then I'm like, what? So then now we are now stepping into wearable jewelry design, because that top probably it took 3 weeks for them to make, and I don't know, 80 or like 800 tiny small beads. 8 women worked in it. But the interesting thing about Shiko Onyango and why I passionately love what she does is, I remember she told me, she was like, Koya, I want you to know that you, just by commissioning us to do this, you just hired about 8 to 10 artists to work on this. So she then was able to call artists who didn't, and now they all came together and just like did this whole like beading moment. Fashion in Africa is community as well. It is, we all are coming together, we all are eating together, we all are communing together, we all are going to have this shared experience as we create this fashion. So when you wear this piece, there were like 10 people sitting down, laughing, having a good old time as they create. So when we really talk about something is made with love, it could not be more embodied of all of that. But then it comes and you see this piece and you're like, and you want to say we don't have savoir-faire and haute couture in Africa? Like, are you kidding me? This is exactly what this is.
Tell us about what's on the horizon, 2025 ACF. What is in store this year that's a variation from the past? What can people expect?
So this year, our theme is, drum rolls please, curiosity.
Love it.
And I chose curiosity because I think it's a skill that we are not using. We're not being curious about other people. I think we're just like, oh, okay, cool. I'm just gonna quickly get to judge you, or I'm quickly just not going to like care about you, or I'm quickly like your problems and what affects me, I really don't care about. If there's a gap between, I don't know, black people and white people, and some people that are not get like, we're not curious as to why. Why are things the way they are? We're not curious when, oh, you're coming to my country and now we're not curious about people. Yeah. So the theme is curiosity. Every single year we're like, how are we reimagining this? What, like every.
Are we switching it up this time?
Listen, it is creativity.
Let me show you different again.
We leave that every single day. But this year I'm really wanting to bring a lot of the different Denver communities, like people who are mural artists, like filmmakers, just all coming together. So this year is really art infused, but art infused in like all sectors. So there really will be a coming together of a lot of like different artists in the state, and now like artists in the different parts of Africa that will come. And it's going to be, this one is really, I'm really excited about this one. I really, really am. I feel like I was excited about this one, I am, because it's completely going to be different, as it should be every single time. So this one I am excited about. Everything is going to look very differently. Even the food is going to look differently. We're going to explore it in an entirely different way. Like we are going to be having curious corners. So you're going to really we are basically building kind of like a world, and you're going to be infused and be curious. So even the ticket sales this year is how curious enough are you to get this ticket without even having all the information? That in itself is curiosity. Like, are you curious? Do you want to know? Okay.
I found some people who are curious. They were like, that looks cool.
There.
We're coming.
Oh,
but
yes.
we don't know what it is.
Great. That right there. That right there. That is curiosity. I want you to be curious enough to go outside of your way to be like, okay, let me see what this is. Because when you're curious, good things happen. So that's as much as I can say right now. But yeah, it's going to be happening in September. Theme is curiosity. Everything is going to be completely different. But just come in with an open mind and leave anything that you think you know 2 weeks before you come in or at the door. That's also
you might get
okay.
the agenda for the 2 days when you arrive. So just like that.
It cannot be an African party when we are not late. Oh, so yeah. So, but I really am excited to welcome new people who've never been to ACF before to come and I want to say this because someone asked me, like, is this a place where it's only for African people? And I was like, no, this is a place for everybody. Yeah. This is a place if you are curious. And I want to imagine that curiosity is a human feeling that we all have. So then this is a place for every human to be at.
Well, I hope a lot of people join us because it's going to be whatever it is.
It's good, which is going to be amazing.
It'll be amazing.
It will be amazing. Yes.
And it gives us a great opportunity.
Yes. Yeah.
To be expressive and creative and imaginative.
Yeah. So then you can come and show up and be who exactly you really want to be. This is that place to genuinely just show up because it's a place to like let loose and be free and know that you have freedom to be whoever you are because that is art and creativity.
Well, is there anything else we haven't hit on that you want to share before we wrap up our time together today?
First of all, thank you for doing this, for bringing me to have this conversation. I think we've chatted for probably longer than you thought we would.
No.
No, but thank you for...
I know how Koya time works.
Don't tell everybody. Just for embodying these pieces in a way that only you are embodying them. that for being bold, brave, and different. That is something that the world needs to see and needs to like free themselves and know that they have it inside of them to do that. I think that's really important.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I think part of ACF has been, I mean, you and ACF and Let Me Show You Different have all been part of that. So I'm really grateful. Thanks, Koya.
Thank you. Oh. Okay.
All right. Thank you all for joining us for Adorned in Imagination with Koya Nyangi of Let Me Show You Different and the African Creators Festival. I hope you join us September 13 and 14.
Yes.
Then go to letmeshowyouDifferent.com.
Yes.
For tickets.
Yes.
As with all of the videos in this series, I really can't wait to hear from you all. Your perspectives, your questions, the light bulbs that went off, and what other designers or different facets of imagining ourselves into existence you're thinking about and want to share. So we'll talk to you next time.